59. He's a poor loser. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Hearing Eve's words, Sierra could not help but be stunned for a moment. A trace of doubt flashed across her eyes. She looked at Eve and asked with a puzzled expression, "Why?" "Because there are only a few rich heirs in Porthampton University. Although there are many young people who are from influential families in the school, there are less than 10 rich heirs who are considered famous. Although we don't really know each other, we know about each other." Eve hurriedly replied. "What if Connor is a very low-key rich heir?" Sierra asked. "That's not impossible." Eve nodded lightly. "That's why I want to find out Connor's true identity. I'm worried that Mina will be deceived by Connor." Sierra paused for a moment, then looked at Eve and continued, "And I can see that you seem to be interested in Mina. If you can prove that Connor is a fake rich heir, Mina will definitely choose to break up with Connor." "Sierra, what do you mean by that? I've always loved you. I was just putting on an act with Mina." Although Sierra had exposed Eve, he knew that his relationship with Mina was not over yet. Moreover, Mina's was still very cold to him, so he did not intend to give up on Sierra as a backup. "Even if you're not interested in Mina, can you help me since she's my friend?" Sierra replied softly. Update on Biomicron X0VL. Siomicron M. "Of course. Your matter is my matter. I definitely won't stand by and watch." Eve patted his chest and shouted, then continued, "I'll call my friend now and ask them to investigate who this Connor is." "Can your friend find out?" Sierra asked worriedly. "Don't worry. As long as this kid is a student at Porthampton University, I'll definitely be able to find out his identity." Eve replied without thinking. "All right, then I'll go back in first." Sierra nodded gently, then turned around and walked into the private room. When Eve saw Sierra go back, a smug smile appeared on his face. Although he said that he was doing this because of Sierra, he was actually doing it for Mina. Once he had exposed Connor's true identity, it would be of great help to Eve in pursuing Mina. Eve took out his phone and dialed a friend's number. "Hey Hudson, can you get the deets on someone for me?" After the call was connected, Eve said with a smile, "Who is it?" The other party asked arrogantly, "Is there a rich heir named Connor MacDonald in our university? Do you know him?" Eve said slowly, "Connor MacDonald?" When the other party heard this name, he could not help but be stunned for a moment. Then, he asked in a puzzled tone, "Which year is he in?" "He should be in his 3rd year. Anyway, he's not from our batch. Otherwise, I would definitely know him." Eve replied after thinking for a moment. "3rd year's Connor MacDonald?" The other party recalled briefly and then said loudly, "What the F***CK? This Connor MacDonald you're talking about can't be the poor Connor MacDonald from our school, right?" "Poor?" Eve suddenly remembered something. "Yeah, have you forgotten? It's that Connor that you joined the Zither Club with that time. He's that poor loser who goes to deliver food after class every day. I heard that he was cheated on by his girlfriend who then got together with Brandon Guthrie." The other party hurriedly said. "Now that you mention it, I have some impression of that happening." After hearing the other party's words, Eve grinned and continued, "I was wondering why this kid looked a little familiar just now. So, he's the poor loser who delivers food in our school. Hee hee, interesting." Why are you suddenly asking me about this kid? The other party asked with some doubt. It's nothing. I'm just casually asking. Eve replied casually and hung up the phone. He walked into the private room with a smile on his face. He was prepared to expose Connor's identity in front of everyone. Eve felt that as long as Mina knew Connor's identity, she would definitely break up with Connor on the spot. At that time, he would comfort Mina. Perhaps he would be able to bring the beauty home. Haha, such a good opportunity for me. Eve suppressed the joy in his heart and hurriedly walked toward the private room. However, at that moment, the door to the private room opened again and Sierra walked out. Eve, how's your investigation going? Sierra asked Eve excitedly when she saw him. Don't worry, I've already investigated it clearly. This Connor is not some rich second-generation heir at all. He's a famous poor loser in our school. He usually relies on delivering food outside the school to make a living. I'm going in now to expose this kid's true colors, Eve said proudly to Sierra. When Sierra heard Eve's words, a hint of excitement flashed across her eyes. She had long suspected Connor's identity. Now that Eve had confirmed it, it meant that Connor was definitely not a rich heir. Let's go. I can't wait to expose his real identity. At that time, I want to see how he is going to explain this matter. Eve reached out and tugged at Sierra as he said with a smug expression. Wait a minute. Sierra suddenly glanced at Eve and said softly, If you go in now, do you have any evidence to prove that what you said is true? Do we still need evidence? The entire Porthampton University knows that Connor is a poor loser. I reckon that as long as I say it out loud, he will definitely be scared silly. He might even be unable to speak. Eve said with a smile.
À chance.
Sierra looked at Eve helplessly, not knowing what to say. Sierra, don't worry. This guy is famous for being a poor loser in our school. As long as I reveal his identity, he'll definitely pee his pants on the spot. Eve could not help but want to expose Connor's identity, so he dragged Sierra into the private room.